What's up? What's up? Hanging with the Beast, episode 6. Give me back my 90s music. And today we are talking about great lead guitarists. And as you can hear, coming into this episode, that was the great Slash from the super band Velvet Revolver with their hit Fall to Pieces, which is absolutely magnificent song from a magnificent album. And just a great compilation of wonderful musicians all coming together to create a lot of short-lived music, which is just timeless, man. If you've never heard Velvet Revolver, please do. Obviously, Slash, Duff, the great Scott, the great late great Scott Weiland, one of just a phenomenal short-lived group. That is one of their best songs off that album. But getting to the subject matter at hand today, we're talking about the top guitarists from the 90s. What I did is it's very look, it's impossible to make a list of all the greatest, because I think that when you sometimes kind of limit things to who's the greatest, well, yeah, that depends on the time, that depends on the type of music, and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the absolute talent. So that being said, of course, this is about all things from the 90s, so I'm just going to keep this list short and sweet. That way, we don't go off on a tangent here, because we could keep going all day, all night with naming great guitarists from that time. And this is just my opinion on some of the top five. And again, I know for a fact that there are so many others. I don't put these guys in these artists in order per se. It's just an order to have for my own thing going on. So this obviously doesn't mean from one to the other. I guess it would be sort of kind of like when people kind of make the distinction or want to make the argument about who's the greatest basketball player of all time. Well, again, it's kind of really hard to do, in a sense that times have changed, the game has changed, the rules have changed, the talent has changed, and therefore you would have to really kind of break things down accordingly to how we kind of did when we did the greatest lead singer of a band a couple shows ago. And we really kind of want to cover that person gets into several different categories. Of course, everything is opinionated, so you can't ever really have it in order. Although when it comes to basketball, because it's just my opinion, I'm going to say Kobe Bryant. That's just me. Obviously, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. I think LeBron is definitely in there, but I don't think he's the greatest of all time. There's something that those first four players have that is a killer instinct that is just very rare. But let's change the channel back to this episode and the subject matter. So, opened up the show with the great Slash on guitar, and obviously, number one, I'm going to go with his Slash. In my opinion, there is not a guitar player on this planet like Slash. Okay, for various different reasons, he has that distinct sound that you can always tell is his own style. The guy is, I think, all things probably of a guitar guru, if there ever was one. He is just a guru when it comes to the guitar, and we've seen his career span so long and just go from so many different projects, whether it's the great Guns N' Roses, obviously Velvet Revolver, Slash's Snake Pit, his band with Miles Kennedy, his solo work. Slash is going to go down easily as one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Now, that being said, I always talk about how if you really want to go to appreciate an artist or a lead singer or a band for that matter, what you really should do is take the time, spend the money, and go see them live. I had the pleasure to go see Slash 3 times. One time was with Miles Kennedy's group at the Paramount on Long Island, and it was an absolute phenomenal show. He was killer. And then I had the pleasure to see Guns N' Roses not once but twice. Once at MetLife Stadium, and then at the Madison Square Garden. And once again, Slash just, I mean, Guns N' Roses was absolutely amazing, but Slash absolutely killed it. He had these amazing solos, these amazing riffs. I mean, he had, as everybody knows who's seen him or has seen on YouTube or whatnot, these great that great Godfather solo that he does. Do 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 do. I mean, listen, man, there's nothing more kick-ass than that. He's the ultimate guitarist, if you ask me. Um, Another great thing about him, of course, is just the profile, the hat, the long black hair. It's the cigarette in the mouth. It's something that will be around forever. It's just one of those things that you can always kind of resonate with all things music. And of course, the good thing about Slash is he comes over from the 80s, changing of the times, changing of the music as well. And he is more relevant today than I think so many other people. So he has the longevity, he has the obviously talent. You've seen him go to play with several different groups, several wonderful different musicians. How can you not like Slash? I don't know anyone who has anything bad to say about him. Um, just an incredible life too. If you ever had the chance, read his book. His book is absolutely kick-ass. I had the pleasure of reading that book. I went cover to cover, cover to back, very quickly. It was just a phenomenal read. I believe the book is just called Slash. Basically chronicles his life, and he's had a very interesting life. Obviously, for those who don't know, his mother actually used to, I think she used to date David Bowie, and she used to kind of create his costumes. So Slash kind of was familiar with David Bowie, so he obviously had that wonderful intro into the music business. His mother's name was Ola Hudson, and she was she was a fashion designer and a costumer for David Bowie as well as Ringo Starr and supposedly Janis Joplin. And again, it just goes to show you how sometimes when someone is in something at a certain age, they just go forward with it, obviously, and obviously destroying kick ass, which he obviously did. And from that point on, just being around music and everything, and just the music business had such a big effect on his life, which is a real interesting fact, is that he was given the nickname Slash by that wonderful actor, the late Seymour Cassel, who you could see in a lot of movies such as Tin Man, or he was in Indecent Proposal. He played the bodyguard to Robert Redford. And he's in endless amounts of movies. Phenomenal actor, man. He had that great mustache. He was in Dick Tracy. I believe he was Sam Ketchum, played the detective opposite Warren Beatty, who played Dick Tracy. But yeah, he actually gave him the nickname Slash. So, but again, a very interesting life. If you ever seen a lot of interviews with Slash or the documentary that they have about him, I think it's on YouTube. You can always see a guy who's really never changed his kind of demeanor. He's always been that really calm, kind of chill, really cool, really musical, very intelligent type of person. And that's one thing I love about him, is he's never had to change his style. If you ever see him live too, he also does these wonderful handstands, which is really amazing. He's got great balance. But again, he's been part of some of the greatest bands and greatest albums that there ever has been, whether it's with Guns N' Roses doing Appetite for Destruction, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, and then you have, of course, the Velvet Revolver. So he is just all things guitar. That's the first person that comes to mind every time this conversation comes to mind. And he's played with Michael Jackson and all these other groups, and he just has a very interesting life. How he came to L.A. and he started the band Guns N' Roses and everything, and how they all came together, and then from there. Slash's Snake Pit, Velvet Revolver, Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators, and of course, then there's, he had his battles, of course, with substances, I guess you could say, and he's overcome that wonderfully, and just keeps on going, man. I think his son is a musician too, which really makes sense. One of his sons there. That makes. I mean, can you imagine? What a great thing to happen. But yeah, Slash definitely number one. Again, if you are, I think if you're silly enough to argue with the fact that he should be there or as number one, I don't know what to tell you, man, because that's sort of like how I feel about Elvis. Like when people automatically say I don't like Elvis or I hate Elvis, or the conversation's over, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. That's the end of that. So let's not have that. If you're gonna diss Elvis and Johnny Cash, don't talk to me. that's just the way it goes. Moving on, guitarist who I think I've come to appreciate a lot more over the years, especially if I've got to hear a lot more his solo work, and I got a lot to just pay attention to his guitar solos, is Tom Morello. I mean, you really have to appreciate Tom Morello, another guy who has really created his own sound, that distinct sound. You know, for so long, being the absolute Shrek-like moron caveman beast that I am, it always sounded to me that like a lot of those guitar riffs from Rage Against the Machine were, I thought it was, as a younger kid, I thought it was like a DJ actually scratching a record. No, that's Tom Morello on guitar. Absolutely just shreds it. A very, very intelligent guy. If you've ever heard him speak, or you've seen heard him on the radio, he has his own does his own block with, I think, Lithium on Sirius, and he just knows his stuff really well. Just an incredibly interesting guy who again was part of two very huge groups, whether it was Rage Against the Machine and Audio Slave. Now I think he's with that Prophets of Rage, although supposedly Rage Against the Machine is coming back together. I know they have a show coming up in the Madison Square Garden, which has been postponed various times because of the pandemic. But man, Tom Morello is an absolute killer. In fact, if you ever really want to see him shred big time, YouTube, I forgot what year it is, the Music Hall of Fame, but it is him, it is Chris Cornell, it is one of the singers from Heart, the great John Fogerty, uh, and Dave Grohl, and so many other musicians doing their version of Down by the Crossroads. It's absolute kick ass. And there's this whole segment where Morello just absolutely shreds and just takes over everything. Really interesting about him was that he was at Harvard University, graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in social studies. So again, a very, very, very interesting and intelligent guy. It's always very interesting to see two types of people, I think, in whatever field they're in. Those guys who kind of go down the road of maybe school, college, and then go into the field, or the guys who don't do that and still go into the field. So it's always really interesting that way. Yeah, so Morello was an extremely intelligent guy, and again, one of those guys that's just extremely intelligent when it comes to music. In fact, like I said before, if you ever listen to his podcast, he knows his stuff really good. I mean, very intelligent guy. I know he's a very political guy, hence be why Rage Against the Machine worked. And let's just talk about that for a second. The formation of Rage Against the Machine was the perfect time. I think they're one of those bands that were just so at the forefront of things during the 90's because they created their own sound, and again it was distinct and you knew who it was. And again, a lot of that had to do with Zach De La Rocha's vocals, his voice range, as well as Morello's riffs. And of course you can hear all his wonderful guitar playing on so many of the songs. I think one of the songs in which that really you can appreciate him is Bullseye Parade, which was on Rage Against the Machine's album, which for some reason has drawn a blank in my head. It obviously wasn't their opening album, but I think it was the second one. I forgot the name of it, tell you the truth. But yeah, you can really appreciate his stuff there because it's one of the first things that you could just hear, and of course, it just kind of so many other of the songs too, which just resonates that guitar style. Absolute badass, man. Um, so Evil Empire was the name of the album, man. I'm sorry, Evil Empire, with that funky kid on the front. Great album, man. Kick ass album. They had what? Rage Against the Machine, Evil Empire, The Battle of Los Angeles. I think were three of the most kick ass albums. All just all just really great in their own. It was a shame to see that band break up. To tell you the truth, and when they did, I think it was in 2000. Some types, I guess, disagreements and stuff like that. And then they had that whole remember that Tim Comerford, their bassist thing, where he climbed the thing at the VMAs. Whatever the case may be, shit happens, man. He then went on to be part of Audio Slave, which again, excuse me, had a really had a great combination of musicians. Chris Cornell, Tim Comerford, Tom Morello, and Brad Wilkes. So basically, it's all Rage Against the Machine with just Chris Cornell. It's funny about Audio Slave is that I always thought, this is just my opinion, as good as they were, they never really had that sound that you thought they would have had. Because again, like, you have all these musicians in there that just come from this explosive background in Rage Against the Machine and the great voice of Chris Cornell. And they had some absolute kick-ass songs, whether it was Cochise or all the other stuff they had. But I think that I always was waiting for more from them to just kind of be that thing that was greater than Rage Against the Machine. But that's sometimes it's just not possible. And I guess it didn't live long for whatever reason. But he was part of that, of course, and he was now part of Prophets of Rage. Which is got a very interesting combination too. Be Real, uh, Chuck D, Tim Comerford, DJ Lord, and Brad Wilk again. So, um, you know, now you kind of have a little bit of a nice rap combination there, but they're sort of used to that because Zach De La Rocha basically was singing in a rap type style, which was really a really interesting combination of the metal music with the rap style, which again worked wonderfully for Rage Against the Machine. So Tom Morello is definitely in there. He's an absolute killer on guitar with his own individual sound. The next person I'm going to talk about in terms of guitarists is Kenny Hickey from Typo Negative. And I said this in my last show, is that I've grown to respect Kenny Hickey as a guitarist more and more as time has gone on and the band is no longer together because of obviously the horrible death of lead singer Peter Steele. But Kenny absolutely shreds on guitar. And again, had the pleasure of seeing them 14 times. He killed it every time I saw him. You could appreciate them so much more sometimes as time goes on, and either they're still together or not. But great guitarist, man. Great lead guitarist. Again, very, very unique sound. Sound that basically worked with the rhythm of the band, which is always wonderful. And I loved Kenny's vocals, man. I actually told him that when I met him. So I loved hearing your vocals, man. He was actually really nice when I said that to him because I thought he had a really good voice, especially going along with Peter's. You kind of had like a little bit of a high pitched voice with a very low pitched voice, and it really worked out together. But of course, everybody knows how Kenny is just been part of Typo Negative for so long. They had just amazing, great work, as I spoke about in my last episode. Bunch of great albums. They had a great run, and they're still. I mean, their fan base is just huge today. I'm part of that. Happy and proud to be part of that. And he was part of a bunch of great albums: Slow, Deep, and Hard, Origin of the Feces, Bloody Kisses, October Rust, World Coming Down, Life is Killing Me, and of course, Dead Again. And then he also was part of the band Seventh Void, of course, where he was the lead vocals, lead guitar as well. And he was also, excuse me, teamed with the great Johnny Kelly, the drummer from Typo Negative. If you haven't heard them, man, go and hear some of their music. They had some really cool tunes. He also Pale Horse Named Death. Again, a couple of different members in there from from Typo Negative, Sala Bruscato and Johnny Kelly. And he actually, excuse me, I take that back. No, Kenny was not in that band. Go figure. He was associated with them. I always get them confused. No, Pale Horse Named Death was is just Sal Ruscato on vocals, Chris Hamilton, Eric Morgan, Eddie Needles, Joe Taylor on guitars. Bobby Hamble used to be in that band, as well as Johnny Kelly from Typo Negative, which really cool combination of musicians. Again, give them a listen too if you've never had the were able to kind of listen to them. So he's actually, you know, um, going back. Oh man, Bobby Hamble was in Biohazard. That's it. But yeah, I always used to get them confused. Pale Horse Named Death. My bad on that one. He was also part of played with. I also saw Danzig for a little bit, and then he was also part of this band, which I think is now together, Silver Tomb. He is the lead singer and guitarist, and of course Johnny Kelly on drums again. Really cool to always see band members that have stuck together and are still going strong and just starting new bands. Kick-ass name for a band by the name Silvertone, man. Really dig that. But yeah, he shreds, bro. He just shreds. You go back so many times, you listen to all those wonderful Typo Negative albums, and you can really just hear him at the forefront, just killing it on so many songs, so many to name. And again, if you've had the pleasure to see them live, you would appreciate him a lot. And he was always one of the favorites, man. And the more and more I saw him live, the more I would appreciate them because, you know, seeing a band live always kind of does something to you different, man. I mean, you especially I think now, again, not taking anything away from anybody who's making music now, but when they used to do it a different way with not so much special effects and kind of what they do now, and again, what the hell do I know about it? I don't know much about it, but when it was, I guess, more of a pure way of doing it, it obviously sounded different, of course. And when you see them live and you can actually appreciate them live from what you've heard on the album, it's so much better. And he's one of those guitarists um, who who did that. So Kenny Hickey, Tom Morello, and the Great Slash. And moving on to the next guitarist is Mr. Dean DeLeo from the Stone Temple Pilots. Listen, I don't think I should even have to kind of really go into this, but if you've never heard of the Stone Temple Pilots, shame on you. Okay, and Dean DeLeo has some of the greatest riffs from the 90's. I mean, from all those wonderful songs that Stone Temple Pilots had on so many different albums. I don't want to say the word underrated, but these guys, to me, primarily Dean DeLeo, Kenny Hickey, I always felt were underrated. And of course, that doesn't mean that they are. I just always felt that they should be considered higher up on the list with whoever is talking about guitarists from the 90's, music in the 90's, and guitarists as well. DeLeo is definitely one of them. And again, he's one of those guys, the more I listen to them, the more I appreciate him, whether it's Purple, whether it's Core, whether it's Shangri-La, Di-Da. I just think that he fit in, his sound was distinct and it fit in perfectly to create that original Stone Temple Pilot sound. And all these guitarists were part of bands that again were able to create their own unique sound. I think that's what makes them very special, and I think that's what makes you able to pick them out when you hear them. Like I said before, Slash having his own sound, Tom Morello having his own sound with those crazy riffs that he uses, and that whammy ball, that thing, and Kenny Hickey and Dean DeLeo. So yeah, he's definitely in there. And again, he's been part of Stone Temple Pilots, the short-lived band Talk Show, which they had formed when Scott Weiland was not part of the Stone Temple Pilots. And there, he also was part of that group, Army of Anyone, which was short-lived. Never really got around to listening to them. I'd love to. Never heard of them. I don't know if anyone's listened to them. I see they had one album in 2006, and their group was Richard Patrick, Robert and Dean, and Ray Luzier. The cool thing about Robert DeLeo is, I'm sorry, Dean DeLeo, is he's always kind of played with his brother Robert, and his brother Robert is a phenomenal bassist, again, for the Stone Temple Pilots. Always cool to see when blood sticks together like that, man. I always dig that. And they're still going strong today, Stone Temple Pilots. Of course, they are not the same group. They do have a new lead singer after the unfortunate parting and passing of Scott Weiland. Jeff Gutt is the lead singer, and I have not really had a chance to listen to a lot of their new material. I would be open to it, but I am just kind of one of those people who feels that sometimes the original is just the best and just where it's at. And I'm sure this guy Jeff Gutt has a wonderful voice, but I don't know. I mean, I'm always open to giving things a listen. Um, yeah, man, DeLeo is just great. Again, had the pleasure to see him live. Shreds it, kills it. He was part of this wonderful group that was at the forefront of the '90s, much like Tom Morello, who they were primarily really important during the '90s. I mean, when they were at their peak, I would like to say, as opposed to guys like Slash and Kenny Hickey, who had been around before and had crossed over. So he's one of the guys who definitely, who I have on this list for various reasons. And another thing that all these guys have done together is that they've created this unique sound that is endless and timeless, and have been part of one of the most wonderful music movements of all time. And we continue to appreciate their work in these present times, which allows us to kind of flash back to the way things used to be and to the new work they keep on creating. So, moving on, and last is, of course, no other than the great, great Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains. How can you not put Jerry Cantrell in this category? He's another guy who's just a music guru, in there with Slash, in there with Tom Morello, came out of that Seattle scene, part of, one of the greatest bands of all time, which is Alice in Chains. In my opinion, I don't think I don't think it gets any better than that. Um, when it comes to groups, and I always felt that Alice in Chains was an extremely underrated band for whatever case. Maybe that's just me. I don't know, but it's just always the way I felt. And of course, Jerry Cantrell was one of the two people that formed this band, along with drummer Sean Kinney. Um, and listen, again, the ends justify the means. This band is just obviously one of the greatest of all times. Again, they have created their own unique sound that is, once you hear it, you know it's Alice in Chains. And I mean, he's also had a big part in the vocal part of the band, and helped make this band just, again, one of the standards for not just the '90s but even today. And again, they're still going strong with a different lead singer, but he's just, I have to keep him in here, even as a songwriter, man. I mean, Jerry Cantrell just kills. Um, One of those great, like I said, musical minds of the time that you really have to appreciate. I think you appreciate him a lot more as time goes on and whatnot. He's also contributed to so many different soundtracks, whether it's The Cable Guy, John Wick 2, Jerry Maguire, Deadwood. I mean, he also had a killer solo album back in the day. Well, not really back in the day, but really good, man. I think it was Boggy Depot was the one I'm thinking of, which is really good, man. Um, Excellent album. If you've for anyone that's never heard it, got that really cool picture on the cover. Um, they had that killer track from "It Cut You In," which was a phenomenal song. Kind of sounded a little bit like Alice in Chains, but excellent, man. And again, on that album, he teamed with Mike Inez, Les Claypool, Sean Kinney. So if you've never heard that album, definitely give that a listen. One of the things that I always find very interesting too is when these gentlemen have contributed to the writing of the songs, which we've seen from Jerry Cantrell, which we've seen from Dean DeLeo, which we've seen I'm not sure if Slash and Kenny Hickey had a hand in writing the music. It just sometimes it's just interesting to see them have a hand in it too. But Jerry Cantrell, very hands-on type of guy. Um, when it came to that, and again, he was a very big part of the Allison Chains group. Um, you can't really mention Lane Staley without Jerry Cantrell, which makes sense. And again, this is a group that has lost two of their original members in Lane Staley and Mike Starr, and they've been able to go on with other members. So kudos to them for going forward and still continuing to make music. Another interesting thing about all five of these gentlemen is that they've appeared in so many different albums, and with so many different other groups or lead singers or whatever. They're all over the place, and that just them makes it even more of a reason why the five of them deserve to be here. And again, there's a whole bunch of other guys. I'm not talking about right now, only for time constraints, because we'd be here for like a couple of days. But it's very interesting to see that they have really been stretched themselves all over the place, whether it's the different groups or movie soundtracks or playing tracks on certain albums. So it just makes them all the more wonderful as musicians and as artists. And again, Jerry Cantrell came out of that great Seattle scene with so many great bands like Pearl Jam and great guitarists like, you know, Jeff Ament, Stone Gossard, Mike McCready, Soundgarden, Nirvana. So, man, what was in the water there? I don't know. Whatever it is, I really hope that could be duplicated again, although it can't be. But yeah, this is just my list, my top five for now. And again, I've repeated myself saying it. I know there's so many more, and I don't really put any of these guys in order per se, but it was just my way of breaking it down. So Slash, Tom Morello, Jerry Cantrell, Kenny Hickey, and Dean DeLeo. I'd love to hear who you guys feel, who you guys love in terms of guitarists, or what your opinion is on it and everything. Whether you agree or disagree with me, I'd love to hear about and why. Although hopefully we all agree, because we all love this music from the '90s and forever. It's not just from the '90s, but it's going strong now. So give me a shout, give me a holler. You can get me on Instagram, you can get me on Facebook. I'll always love talking to people, always open to hearing just from everyone. So much love and respect. Thank you for listening. We'll be getting back to you with another episode soon. So this is the Beast out.